Sure better than the Mets. Oh, there we go, Michael. Good morning, pal.
It's a miraculous, morose, and malodorous Monday. And I welcome you to the show, Vinny. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I say hello there.
Hello there. It's good to see you, my pal. Well, there's a lot shaking. It's funny. There's a lot shaking and not.
Well, everybody's talking about my helicopter crash with Donald Trump. We nearly died, you know. We went we
Were you
went
in that helicopter too?
we went there. It was a helicopter with like unlimited seating. Willie Brown was there. Willie Mays was there. Willie Fantina from the Shrink Down the Streets there. The president of Slovakia was on the plane or the helicopter. We all went down. We went down hard. It's a terrible thing, and they told me terrible things about Kamala Harris on the way down.
Yeah, there was a bunch of people on that helicopter. I
As
don't
Al,
know.
as Al Davis would say, the helicopter must go down and it must go down hard.
Was Al Franken on that helicopter too?
He was the pilot.
Oh my! Just. I mean, any way you slice it, it's a bizarre story. I mean, what was the point to telling the story? Well, what was the point to that whole press conference?
to put to
Except
put him
to
to put him back in the polls
yeah,
to
put
give
him
him two
to
points.
put him in front of people because Kamala Harris is kicking his ass right now. Now I don't know that that's going to hold true all the way, but he's stumbling and bumbling. His whole campaign is stumbling and bumbling at the moment.
He's lost 20 points when you think of the pro Biden numbers before Biden pulled out of the race. It's been a swing of over 20 to 22 to 23 points from where Biden was to where Harris is now.
Well,
It's an extraordinary turnaround in 2 weeks.
could it be? I,
And a
I
helicopter
mean,
crash.
yeah, could it be that just people are getting sick and tired of his stuff? I mean, his base, the cult people are going to be there.
Not forever.
The cult people are going to be there. Yeah, they'll be there for a long time. I don't doubt that they're gonna, But if you learn anything in the media, you learn that everything has a shelf life. You and I have a shelf life. We all have a shelf life, and
And it's not the prettiest shelf to be looking at right now. It's kind of a weird battered shelf.
yeah, and Kamala Harris has a shelf life that is just opening up. The the amount of young people in the world that are going to be voting have caught on to her.
The funny thing is, all the negatives that were perceived about her or whispered about her when Biden was still running have disappeared, Vinny. The interesting thing, her laugh, her mood, her energy, all those things turned out to be positives that we didn't realize how positive they were going to be. It turns out it's everything that they were worried about in terms of her inexperience or her vice presidential papers, all turned out to be positives. Strange.
Well, I'm I'm of the thought that she's grown into the job. I look at her and I don't see the same Kamala Harris that I saw 4 years ago.
Good point. She's matured a lot and she learned.
I mean, yeah. So the negatives that she has had have turned into positives in many quarters.
And on the other side, the negatives of Donald Trump have turned into negatives.
Well, he just seems like a crazy old coot. I mean,
Hey, you kids, get off that roof.
yeah. I mean, he just seems like. I mean, more and more, he seems like a rambling, crazy old coot. You have to wonder if he's mentally stable enough.
You know what a coot is? You know what a mud hen is?
No, what is a coot?
There's these black birds in San Francisco and all coastal cities that go swimming around in the coastal waters. They're black. They have white eyes, a distinctive yellow beak, and they dip down and they're mud feeders. They're interesting birds. They're not the least bit negative in their presentation. They look great, but they're called coots. And an old coot is this is an old guy who eats out of the mud. And there's Donald Trump for you. He's an old coot. He's in the shore waters looking like a fool, eating worms out of the mud. And we finally caught on to his act.
And I love the fact that they released over the weekend that he wants to sue federal government for the raid at Mar-a-Lago. I mean, now that will get him points with his base.
And that's not what he needs right now, is it?
No, because I think the rest of America is going to look at it and say, well, you kept the papers. Maybe you got away with it because they gave you presidential immunity, or maybe you got away with it because you had a judge that was in your pocket. But he's the same old. It's the same old rich guy gets away with whatever he wants.
Yeah.
That people are sick of. Now, again,
And how many times can he say, "Look over here, I'm suing somebody"? This will take your attention for a moment.
yeah,
Well, he's always suing somebody.
his base is going to mind. His base is going to look at him and say he's a hero. He's suing the government, but he is. He wants to be the government.
The only government.
He wants, he wants to be the government. I mean, to me, maybe I'm too sensible, but to me, you start talking about you want to sue the government, you're running for president. That's not the smartest thing in the world
Smarty did not have a potty.
because people are going to, I think people are going to react negatively to it. And a number of his constituents are probably in that bunch. So what you were saying before about the base eroding, that might be right in some respects because there are going to be a certain number of people who are going to look at this kind of stuff and go, "I'm done, man."
And it's going to be quiet. It's not going to be a sudden thing. It's going to be one or two at a time. It's like the guys in the back watching the snake oil salesman, and they've heard his shtick so many times, and he gets to the point where it's going to cure rheumatism, and they go, "Oh, bloody hell," and they just wander away. They go to the bar.
Well, yeah, and they're in that space where the more sensible ones are thinking, this is stuff. What is he going to do?
Well, he's going to do a show with Elon Musk tonight. Now that's a recipe for disaster. They better tape that before they run it because don't go live, boys. I'm just giving you a little advice.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like it's a good thing.
It's going to be 10 minutes of. Can you hear me? I can't hear you. Can you hear me now? Oh, hold on, I can't hear you. I see you, but now I can't see you. Can you hear me? Yeah, I can hear you. I can't see you.
Well, I think the big thing about that is, yeah, Elon Musk is like the big, richest guy in the world, like that. But boy, all the other Wall Street people and all these other big bankers and
I'm sorry,
people
can't take your
are
call.
jumping off the ship. The people that he was asking for the money from.
Well, you know what it's like when you're a professional room reader. You can just read the room. The room doesn't look good right now. In fact, his crowds, I know there's been a lot of jokes made about him criticizing Kamala Harris's crowd size, but his crowds have been so weird because he doesn't have a real campaign going. Since we talked, he's been to Montana and Idaho. What the hell was that all about?
Well, there's a chance that he goes to his rally and he sees, the crowd. He doesn't. I doubt he even sees how many people are really there.
No.
The upper rafters may be empty, but they stock everybody down front, and he thinks that the place is full. And they're loud and they're boisterous, and they wear T-shirts and they do all of the things. Meanwhile, when you look at the younger generation, the people who get their news from TikTok and Twitter and Facebook and all the other social media stuff, their engagement with Mamala is
It's
going through the
personable.
roof. They've gone from, let me see if I got the number right. They've gone from the same people, because Harris has the same people running the campaign that Biden did.
No, she doesn't. She's hired a whole new group.
Well, the social media department
Okay,
is still the same.
gotcha.
They've gone from people clicking on Biden's TikToks and not liking it to 20% of the people who click on the Kamala TikToks, the TikToks that are, hashtag Kamala, and and like a 30% engagement rate, a 30% like rate. So that's like, if you're in radio, that's like 30% of the people that you're advertising to
Are buying
go
something,
in and buy your product,
which is unheard of.
which is yeah, unless you're giving away ice cream in a 110-degree day, and you give an ice pops away for 50 cents. That's what you're up against. So that alone tells me. Now again, it's still 80 something days away, and
88, 88 days,
I think
89.
it's 88 days, and it could turn on a dime. We know that, and it's still before Labor Day.
By the way, have you ever turned on a dime? Have you ever done that? Because
Oh yeah,
dimes are incredibly small when it comes time
yeah.
to turn. You can
Well,
turn near one.
you got to get the dime right in the middle of the tread of the tire.
Then you can turn on it
Then you have to hit the brake so the rear of the car comes up off the ground a little bit.
on the
And
dime.
turn the wheel at the right time so that the dime moves like this,
I don't think Donald Trump can do that.
and the car will swing around, and you will have in fact turned on a dime.
And give you 8 cents change.
No, that
Those days are gone.
that yeah, that's not going to happen.
Maybe it was a rumor.
Think the 8 cents change, but you can turn on a dime.
And
You
you
can
can crash
stop
a
on
you,
a
you
dime
can
too.
crash a helicopter up to 20 times before there's any damage done. I think that's been proven.
As a matter of fact, you have to stop on a dime before you can turn on a dime usually,
Now that makes
or
sense.
you go over the
That's the
dime.
first thing you've said in 2 weeks. It makes sense. I'm fabulous.
If you can't stop on a dime,
You can't turn on
you're in
it.
trouble. So, and that means if you're stopping on a dime, that your brakes are Ray Bestos. Ray Bestos, the best brakes in the world, 100% pure asbestos.
This turn in the middle of the FDR was brought to you by asbestos.
Oh my God! To think that I used to put those brake linings in cars all the time. I mean, I don't want to go. I don't even go into it this morning. But the asbestos that I must have breathed in my youth is scares me sometimes.
But you still know what it means to stop and turn on a dime.
Well, yeah, I learned that at a young age. Matter of fact, normal kids would pitch pennies. We would throw dimes onto the street and see if somebody could stop on a dime, and we bet on it.
Most of the time they would.
Unless
Most
they were
people,
driving a big Cadillac, those things will not stop on a dime, no matter how
no,
hard you try.
they're
Big Lincoln,
a little mushy in their suspension.
yeah, yeah. Well, brakes take a while to. We used to have a saying that you hit the brake pedal and it turns out you laughs.
Why would they make Cadillacs that way? Why would they build them that way on purpose in Detroit with a mushy suspension?
Well, that was because they wanted a comfortable ride.
Is that more comfortable, really?
Yeah, when you're driving a big car, if you tune the suspension, put softer springs in, and at that time in the '60s, '50s, that was the conventional wisdom that people wanted big cars with soft rides. They wanted to feel like they were driving their living room down the street.
But it's also like your living room is sliding all into one corner when you make a left turn.
Yes, Now, um, the wisdom goes the opposite way. You want a car to feel as tight as it can, and
Mm.
luckily, suspension stuff has evolved to the point where you can have both. You can set a car's suspension electronically to be stiff, or you can set a car's suspension to be softer. So if you're going up a windy mountain road, you can set it to stiff to feel more the road on you know on more expensive cars, on more
Right.
premium cars. If you put it to a comfort mode, like this Mazda I'm driving this week, this Mazda 3 has a comfort mode and a sport mode. And if you
Does it
put it
have
into
doesn't have a
comfort mode,
doesn't have a discomfort mode?
no, it doesn't have a discomfort mode. Um, if you go into the comfort mode, it softens the suspension. And so it's not the ride as if you put it in the sport mode, the ride gets harder, the handling gets better, and it feels more like a sports car than it does. But they had to fix because even you go back to the early Corvettes. I mean, those were supposed to be nice handling sports cars, and they weren't.
What
They were
year?
basically truck chassis with a
60s?
fiberglass body on them. So technology came up, and they started to stiffen the suspension so they could use them for racing, for drag racing, for road racing, and stuff like that. But the British that down, and the Germans, they had cars that had shocks that you could twist, and it would change the suspension. It would
Twist and
change
shout.
the travel of the shock so that you'd have a tighter steering, tighter bounce in the car. Now, it didn't make for as comfortable a ride, and people today want both. They want a car that handles nicely, but they also want that car, not as comfortable a ride as you would have had back then. So, but that's what I mean. That was what they knew back then. That's what
Yeah.
the car companies thought that the American consumer wanted was to move their living room. That's why they make car seats like couches. I mean, if you were driving a Cadillac, you were basically driving a couch down the street. And
A couch that was part boat.
yeah, you don't want you didn't want to feel connected to the road. The last thing you wanted to do was feel connected to the road.
And could a Mercedes Benz stop on a Deutschmark or a tin Finnick coin?
Uh, I, I, uh, I think they used to stop when gold was $35 an ounce. I know they stopped on Krugerrand.
That was some time ago.
Price
That was before brakes were
of
invented.
gold went up. I think that all changed. Oh man. So it was I don't know, Michael. It was a very mixed emotion. Well, there was a couple of things that happened this weekend, but as far as baseball, boy, oh boy, was it. I mean, if it's funny because I usually would get more depressed if I saw the Mets lose 3 games in a row
Yeah.
and score 1 run in 3 games. I would be,
No.
but luckily, I had 2 horses in a 2 horse race,
Yeah.
so it didn't hurt me so bad that that the Mets lost because I kind of
They
oh,
couldn't lose. They
Mets.
couldn't lose
I've seen
without
the
the
Mets.
Mariners winning. Yeah, the Mariners had
Yeah,
to win if the Mets lost. It's
yeah, I've
technically.
seen him in 4 World Series. I've been to all 4 World Series, so I mean, you know, it's it's uh, it's n- it's nice that they came to town, but the Mariners have never been to the World Series. I don't know right now that they're strong enough to get into the World Series, but if
Not
they
this
like
year.
they played this weekend, It left me with the question of, are the Mariners that good or are the Mets that bad? And it's probably, as always in baseball,
A little
somewhere
both.
in the middle.
Yeah.
But it was definitely it was a little disappointing. I got to admit, because I love my Mets. To see them, if they would have been three close games, I would have
That's
been
another
okay with
thing.
that.
Yeah.
If it had been three or one blowout and two close games,
You didn't feel they were in them?
they weren't in these games ever. I mean, the Mets just looked like they were, and I know they had a long road trip and this and that, but boy, oh boy, they were flailing.
And you lost a friend who went to a lot of Mets games with you at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, I'll get to that in a second. But it was, yeah, it was heartbreaking to see if you're a Mets fan, and you don't, and I was surprised. That's the first time I'd seen the Mets in Seattle. I think the last time they were here, or the last two times they were here, I was gone. So now I guess with, I don't know how they've changed the schedule, but every team plays every team. I think this year they'll play in New York or something like that. I know that the Mariners are going to Pittsburgh this week.
Have they been there before? Do you think they'll find it?
The Mariners, yeah. Well, they're in Detroit to start, so it's not hard to find Pittsburgh.
So they could take a bus ride and
You
find
go
them.
south, you make a left, and you just go along um, 80.
But you go over the wrong bridge, you're not going to be at the right stadium at the right time, the
Well,
right
you'll
place.
well, you could wind up at the football stadium, and
Yep.
that could be confusing. And the way the Mets are playing,
Maybe they should take on the
honestly,
Steelers. Yeah.
or but I meant the Mariners, I should say, uh, because well, we'll see.
We're
They,
here. Maybe we can play the Steelers. Could we play the Steelers in softball?
you could, but I didn't get a chance to look to see what Russell Wilson did this week as the new Steelers quarterback. I know the Seahawks played this week. I don't know down in LA. I don't know if they won or they lost because, as I always do with exhibition games, I watch the first quarter and then I go away.
The funny thing about what they do with preseason games is they don't do the play-by-play. They just talk about other stuff. They talk about the quarterback's mother. They talk about his charities. They talk about the new car he bought. They talk about his kids was sick, but now he's feeling better. And they have no you have no idea who's playing. You have no idea. You look at your quarterback as the wrong number. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, they
They don't
always
tell
make
they
sure to
don't
tell
they,
you
they
what
don't tell you
college he got drafted out of.
they don't tell you who's in the game. They don't tell you what's going on. They just keep talking.
Well, we have an interesting thing here in Seattle where we have a woman doing play by play for football. And it's not that I don't like it. It takes a little for football. It takes to get a little getting used to.
This is radio or TV.
TV, radio. Steve Rabel does the games. They have the whole same crew.
He identifies as a man.
Yeah, but it's just weird to listen to a football game because you're used to that. That's third down and five, and when you hear a woman's voice, it's just you don't associate it.
The frozen tundra
And
doesn't
there's no
sound as
knock against women. It's
this,
just that for people of our age, it takes. And she was good. I mean, she called the game from what I saw. Again, I didn't see the whole game. I saw the first quarter. I mean, she did the play by play as well as anybody.
now she's the full timer or she's just preseason.
She's just preseason. These are
Right.
just preseason games that are on
Gotcha. Local
Kong
TV.
or King or. But it definitely took a little. I don't remember if she was there last year, to be honest with you. But I know that as I watched it this year, it definitely took a little getting used to. So, I mean, she'll be fine. I think it's interesting. It's different than what you're used to.
You know where she came from? Is
No,
she from here?
no, I don't. I forget her name even. But it took a little getting used to hear basketball play by play by women. It didn't. It's funny. It didn't take a lot of getting used to when I heard Susan Waldman doing the Yankee games. Because she was, I don't know, she had been around, she'd been on the broadcast, so it almost seemed like a natural progression.
She earned her stripes.
Yeah, but and the Seahawks have a woman's sideline for what I've had for years. So I don't know. It just took a little getting used to, but she was fine. She did a great job. She was as good as that. But I think there are probably some people out there who are just waiting doing that. You know, just like there's some people who aren't going to go for a woman president.
Uh, of all the things that have come up, that's not one that has come up very often. Of all the discussions of
Yeah,
Kamala.
yeah, I've heard it. I mean, I've heard, especially in the South, that there are people who are either that she's black or that she's a woman or both.
Do the people in the South still not realize we don't care what they think? Up to a
No,
point?
they haven't thought that since the Revolutionary, not the Revolutionary, the Civil War.
Civil War. Yeah.
They might
I
have thought
think
it during the Revolutionary War too.
you might have something there.
I mean, they
Absolutely.
might have been thinking it all that time and just not. I mean, when you can have people working for you as slaves, you really mustn't care what people think.
But what will the neighbors think? I really couldn't
The neighbors
care.
have slaves too.
They have a dime, let them turn on it.
Yeah, yeah. If you're the kind of person that thinks slavery is okay, you probably don't care what anybody thinks. So maybe that's where the South gets it from. Although I
Is it-
suspect there's people in the not just in the South that look at a woman president and say, "I'm not going to vote for a woman." But those people are becoming much, much less. Thank God. I,
their
so,
influence is waning day by day.
yeah, I would have liked to have seen it with Hillary. I would have liked to seen her be the first woman
I didn't
president.
have confidence in that particular matchup.
But she just she just ran into well, she ran
Perfect,
into
perfect storm.
yeah, she ran into a combination of things. Not the least of was the email scandal thing
Right.
that was going on, but also Hillary wasn't a likable candidate.
I know. I know.
She just wasn't likable. I mean, I didn't mind her, but I heard more women that said I'm not going to vote for her no matter what. More Democrats that said I'm not going to vote for her no matter what.
Well, they had to be because they voted for Trump instead.
Yeah, or they didn't vote. That seems to be the MO. And I know the Democrats have that problem now.
When you vote, you get $50 off your federal tax return.
You see, well, I think that's unconstitutional, right? You're not supposed to be able to pay for votes.
I paid for the act of voting. I don't care who you voted for.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe, who knows? I'm
Or the
not.
other way around. If you didn't vote, I bill you $50.
Mikey, I got to be honest with you. It's not a bad idea. I mean, if we can if we can give people, if the government can give people checks for stimulus and so on and so forth, and small business loans,
Right.
they ought to require that you vote.
You got to vote. You got to play ball.
Yeah, you got to make the decision. You got to help make the decision. Although, on the other hand, I've always thought that making somebody vote that doesn't want to vote is
Tough.
not a good thing
That's a tough. That's just tough.
because they're not gonna take it seriously. They're just gonna go in there and pull a lever for anybody. You're gonna do like you do a lot of times in those bottom ballot races where you don't know any of the people and you just click the best looking name.
Biff Sugarman.
You know, I mean that literally would be what would happen. I think with the top of the ballot people, you would go in and there would be people would go into the voting booth. They say, "Okay, I like Jim Jones. That looks good. I like Herbie Edelman. Yeah, okay, that looks good.
So to say $50, they go in and they vote for somebody they don't know.
Yeah, I like Martha Ray. Boom. You know,
Is she running again?
uh, uh, um, Jim Jones, Herb Edelman, and Martha Ray are your three candidates.
Quite a seedy lineup. Although Martha, I have nothing
I go
against you,
for
Martha.
Martha.
Yeah, under those
Then again, I've heard
conditions,
stories about Martha. So
haven't we all?
yes, in the Hollywood days,
Think it got out of hand at the party over there.
they said they were going over to Dino's house, and that's
They
the
never
last time
made
I
it.
seen anybody.
I told them, don't do that. Don't. Dino goes to bed at 8. Don't show up late.
Last we saw, they were driving down Hollywood Boulevard in a '63 Cadillac convertible, and they had about 12 of them stuffed in there.
And the suspension was a little mushy.
It was away mushy. It was sitting down like a bug scraping the ground. I think they had Tony Fields and Kate Smith in there. That was the problem.
And Kate was driving.
Kate was driving. She was not a good driver.
She wasn't studious. She was there, but not paying attention.
She was not paying attention. She was always talking and turning her head. She invented the distracted driver.
And Hollywood Boulevard is a straight for the most part, but it gets a little windy there toward Beverly Hills. So watch your action.
You got to be careful, man. Once you go past the Sheik's house is on Sunset, right?
Once you get past La Brea,
Yeah. Where's the Sultan's house? Is that on Hollywood? No, that's
Sunset.
on Sunset.
Sunset Boulevard.
Remember when they put that up, man?
He did not have the best taste, but he had a lot of money. It's a
Had
bad
a lot of
combination.
money.
It's a terrible combination.
Yeah. Oh my God. Was that just? I mean, I remember driving by that thing and stopping. There was always cars stopped, people taking pictures of it.
Because the statues were painted to be as ugly as possible.
Yeah, and anatomically correct.
They were correct.
So in a day where most things were hidden, now nobody would think about it. But in those days, the preachers were preaching against that kind of stuff.
And the call to prayer was 5 times a day, so it was a busy house.
It was a very busy house. God. Yeah. Do they still do the Hollywood Stars tours?
Oh God, yes. You can buy the map and do it yourself. But a friend of mine that used to work at KFWB, Leo Quinones, has got a movie star bus ride now. It's supposed to be a lot of fun. So ask me when the Olympics come to LA.
Yeah. Did you see any of that last night?
Yeah.
That was thrilling.
It was a closing ceremony.
Yeah, the closing ceremony. That was thrilling. Tom Cruise riding off with the Olympic flag. I mean, it was kind of.
First, I'm going to jump off the roof and not die.
Got to give him credit, man.
He jumped. He went off the edge.
You got to give him credit. He's got him bigger than I do.
So, Vinny, what we have in mind is you stand on the roof and then you just jump off. Oh, hold on.
Yeah, no, sorry.
Why don't we just pick it
Work
up?
it
Why don't we
on
just pick it
this.
up where I'm down there in the box, comfortable on my motorcycle?
Yeah, I'll just you have somebody else jump off, cut the shot. I'll be on the motorcycle, and then I'll drive the motorcycle.
Bob's your uncle. I'll drive over there. I'll take the flag. Good.
And I'm not even sure that I want to drive the motorcycle.
Not positive. I'm not completely convinced.
I'm not convinced. I mean, I got to drive this motorcycle through a couple of thousand people. I don't know how good that is.
Well, the shocks have been tightened, so it's going to be a bumpy ride, but the handling will be better.
All right, make sure the field isn't wet. I don't want to go sliding all over the place.
Yeah, for the bike race, it rained in Paris and there was slick. But for the marathon, it was hot. So, geez, what a day.
Yeah, it was. But I thought they did a nice job. I thought what I saw. I mean, I didn't watch a lot of it, but what I saw seemed to be a really nice job. It came off without too much of a hitch. People can go back to throwing crap in the sign again.
I remember when I was in Paris, the workmen would go to the islands that held up the bridges that crossed the Seine, sweep up the garbage, throw it in the river.
Yeah. Yeah, the French are funny like that.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
It's always struck me as funny.
I'm cleaning up. I'm just cleaning up.
Yeah, that the environmental thing is named Paris Accords, and they sweep crap into their own river. It didn't make sense, but then again, the French often don't make sense.
They're very
Matter of
French.
fact, that's the thing about the French is they often don't make sense. So
And you could just say, "Do you want lunch or what?" Yeah, let's have lunch. Sure, why didn't you say? Let's have lunch.
amazing. Let's do lunch. Hey, let's do lunch.
And then the response to that in New York is, "I could eat."
Sorry about that. I saw something going across the screen, and I had to determine whether it was crawling across the screen or it was something on the screen. Mikey, I got to go answer the door a second. Hang on for 1 second, okay?
Okay,
Sing something, dance.
I'll think of something. What am I going to say? Oh,
Talk about the Giants.
it's a quick. By the way, Blake Snell got Player of the Month for his no hitter, so we salute him for that. 11 strikeouts, starting with 3 strikeouts in the first inning of his no hitter. Quite a remarkable feat. The Giants have been put together a pretty good weekend. Won 2 out of 3 against the Detroit team, and had a good series with the Colorado Rockies, which of course is expected. But you have to win those games because the Giants have the new lineup: Robbie Ray pitching, Blake Snell pitching, Webb pitching, power pitchers supported by home runs. And who's hitting the home runs, you think? Chapman at third base, Tyler Fitzgerald at short, Mike Yastrzemski in right. It's a interesting combination of pitching and power that comes without warning in the night, like a storm. And then some days it's just breezy with no weather whatsoever, hardly any weather whatsoever. And that's not the Giants team you want. You want the team that comes in the night with no warning, with power pitching and power hitting. Now, it's not something they've been able to produce throughout the season. That's why they're only a 500 ball club. But the interesting concept is that it came with the return of 2 pitchers, Robbie Ray and Blake Snell, both who started the season on the injured list with terrible injuries, recovering from surgeries. And there's no guarantee in baseball that you're going to return to your form. It's interesting to note that a guy with great talent like Blake Snell can win the Cy Young, hurt his arm, have the Tommy John surgery, come back, and somehow that connection between the brain, the arm, and the ball is there, even though it's all been tied into new places and replaced with surgically and rehabbed quietly, slowly, day by day, getting better and better. And you would think that, yes, the surgery was successful, the arm works like it used to, but can he still throw like he used to? Why is his talent returning when the arm has been reconstructed in such a way? That's a question I just don't have the answer to. I can't imagine that putting together a knee, an elbow, or a shoulder and expecting it to function the way it did before the injury is a logical way to proceed, but it turns out to be exactly the way it works. Somehow, even though you put the arm together in a new way, his brain and his physical abilities and his attack return to that repaired area, and they not only can pitch, but they can pitch at the highest levels with the most efficiency and with extraordinary command. I don't know how that happens. I mean, that to me is a miracle. That's not for a surgeon. That's for a witch doctor. That's for a shaman to put together. But in baseball, that 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 comparison is probably valid. So that's where the Giants are, a 500 team with great promise and a lot of pitching and power suddenly, and then they'll wake up and say, we're the Giants. We're not going to beat the Detroit Tigers today, and they lose 3-2. So they have an identity problem. It's not that I don't know who they are; they don't know who they are, and they welcome the victories, but they're not the least bit surprised by losing. And I don't know that Bob Melvin's having a good time this year either, Vinny, to tell you the truth. He's our new manager, and he's a talented, experienced person with a lot of remarkable background, but he doesn't seem to be very full of energy and vim and vigor and voive.
Yeah, and he left the Padres to take on the Giants, and the Padres seem to have um,
More
a
potential.
conversation this year.
Yeah.
And I don't know though. I think while I don't think Bob Melvin is happy, I think he's happy. I think he wanted this to be his last stop. I mean, he played for the Giants. He was a fan favorite for the Giants for how many years? Um,
And the Bay Area has been good to him.
yeah, the Bay Area has really been good to him. He had a great run over in Oakland. Never got into the promised land, but did as much as he could with what he had. His first managing job was up here, and
And the A's, when they put together their season every year, don't ever think they're going to the World Series. They're just going to play. They're going to be in the league, but they're not going to do anything particularly. And that's their goal, and that's something that they manage every year, year after year.
well, that's a sad thing. I mean, and A's fans have been loyal to the A's for how many years, continuously, and gotten
And
nothing
and
for it.
and in return, what do they get?
I mean, they haven't gotten a sniff of the postseason, or well, maybe they got one sniff of the postseason, a quick in and out. But I mean, I don't know if you're an A's fan how you go to a game this year.
Most of them don't go.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, between the danger of going over to Oakland and
And the
then
stupidity of
um,
going to Sacramento.
and then next year you'll have to go to Sacramento for a couple of years, and then they'll probably get the deal done to go to Vegas.
I'm not optimistic.
Well, they're going to go somewhere.
Yep.
They'll if they don't go to Vegas, I'm sure there's some other city that's going to come up with the money they need to build a stadium, a palace for them. Um, I don't know that the I don't know what's wrong with the ownership group with the A's. It just doesn't seem like anybody can do business with them.
It's like they're not in the league. No matter what they do, they're really not in the league.
Yeah, it just seems like a backyard operation to me. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't follow them that close anymore. Um, I cut my teeth with the A's and the Giants, as you did. They were always the second fiddle team
Yep.
in the Bay Area. And it's
And
just
for a couple of years, it was a nice fiddle. It was a very nice
Yeah,
city.
yeah. In the late '90s, um, it was the late '80s, I should say. Excuse me, the late '80s. The A's had great teams. Giants had some great teams, culminating in the World Series in 1989.
It was a shaker.
Yeah, it was. It was definitely. Oh man, but it was. It was. Um, it's just sad. Well, it's sad to see Oakland. The whole city is sad to see.
It's not a bubbling metropolis. Never has
No,
been.
it just looks like a city that's dying. And
It looks like part of a city that is yet to be named later.
yeah, it just. I mean, it's funny because I don't know that I blame the A's for wanting to get out of there. I mean, I mean, you get out of your car, you don't know if you're going to get robbed. I mean, we used to park across 66th Street. There was like a street, and you could park in that street and just walk across the parking lot.
You got your Hagenberger and you got your Hagenberger.
Yeah. Well, this was on the other side. This was on the north side. No, what would be the I guess the
Yeah,
west
the
side of the
west
Coliseum.
side, yeah, on the other
West
side of
side.
the freeway. Yeah,
I think it was 66th Avenue. And now I wouldn't park there to save my life, man.
it would not be a good place to park to save your life.
No. Or I used to walk to Bart because I used to take Bart over there a lot. And you'd walk to Bart, and now people get robbed walking to Bart. So, and if you're one of those people that work late at the ballpark and you don't go with the crowd,
Good luck to you.
yeah, you better have an armored personnel carrier. And it's sad. It's sad to see a city um, that I really liked a lot dying like that. I mean, I
If it
guess there's
wasn't,
still good pockets.
if it wasn't for the Bay, there wouldn't be an Oakland. It would just be part of San Francisco.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, they stuck the Bay there.
That's what they didn't think. They didn't think when they put it there. They just
Well, it
didn't
was a
think.
good thing though, because I mean, they could get ships in, and that helped out the shipbuilding business, which really grew the cities. Um, that in the military, and then you had because the ship, the ships gave it an international flavor early on, more San Francisco than Oakland.
Yeah.
Um, but Oakland was a pretty hip place at for a while. I mean, when I got there in '82, it was a pretty cool. It was still had a lot of places. I mean, East Oakland was not where you wanted to be, but downtown Oakland was still cool, and once you got into Piedmont and all those areas,
Nice.
they were really nice. They commanded as much money as a house, or almost as much money as a house in San Francisco for a while. I don't know now. I don't know who lives. People still live there.
Not quite the comparison it was. No.
No, no, not even close to what it was.
Still good neighborhoods up there, but not valued the same way.
And then they got destroyed by that fire in what was that 90, 91? The Oakland Hills. Oakland Hills was a beautiful place to live, man. Our friends from 14 Karat Jewelers in Berkeley used to live up there, had a house up there. John, who I had been up to his house a number of times.
To pick
He
up the
lived in,
check.
he lived in a house that was built by one of the Oakland Raiders. I forget who. So it had the pool and all glass. And I mean, it was a really nice house. And I guess him and a bunch of his buddies lived there. So I
Oh
always used
boy.
to sit in that house and go, man, if these walls could talk, the stories they could tell.
I would love to hear them.
Yeah. I don't think you can tell.
There was a time when the Raiders were royalty in the Bay Area.
Yeah. Yeah, those 70s Raider teams, before the 49ers. I mean, people still went to 49ers games, but they were average at best.
Joe Montana was still in school.
Yeah, who was it? John Brody, right?
Well, Steve DeBerg,
Steve. Oh, yeah. Well,
post Brody.
and people. Although I would have loved to have gone to a 49er game at Keyshaw.
I went to one.
Yeah. Was it as wild a scene as people have described it?
You sat on benches, and drank your four roses out of the glass. And then when you were through with your half pint, you just tossed it in the air. Where it comes down is not your concern.
Oh my God, those were the days, man. Those were the days. Now they search you before you go into the stadium of the ballpark.
They,
You have to go
they,
through a metal detector.
they want to know what's on your mind.
Well, yeah. You don't even have a ticket anymore. You show them your phone.
This is all I got.
It's incredible. I mean, it's incredible. You just flash your phone at the thing, and it, boop, 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 and it tells you everything. It sends messages to your phone saying if you want a hot dog, go here. If you want a soda, go there. Oh, one thing cool that the Mariners have done. I didn't notice this.
They still throw food off the upper deck.
Yes, yes, they do that. They do the flying hot dog thing, which is actually pretty cool. But they also um, have free refills on soda.
Oh, that's nice.
You buy a cup, and you can bring the cup back all season.
Whoa.
And
Good
they have
move.
the taps out there, just sitting there, and you can get online and get a soda or water or whatever you want to get. So you don't, I guess I forget how much you paid for the soda. I didn't buy it. Nathan, my friend Nathan, went up and picked the soda up, but yeah, I got the cup, and when I go back, I can go get free soda.
I salute you, Mariners.
I wonder if I can go in on off days and get soda.
Or when there's no game, you mean?
Yeah, like there a road trip that I can go in? Can I go through the pro shop there and the Mariners team store? Can I go in there and get a soda?
Sure. Of course you can. Welcome. You're all welcome.
Well, I thought that was pretty cool. My friend Bill has talked about it a number of times. How they give free refills out in Atlanta, and I always say that's a it's a great idea. I mean, how much does a cup of soda cost you? Especially when you
Bo-
sell them the cup for $8.
Bottomless Sprite.
Yeah. So, and they also had, which I hadn't noticed before, must be new. It's like you walk in, you don't even have to. You just walk in, you grab your sandwiches, and it spies your credit card in your pocket or something,
I
and you walk out again.
like that.
I'm like, how do I, you know?
Now, if they can do that for a cheeseburger and fries, we got something.
I'm glad I'm not 12 years old because I'd be in there like throwing stuff over the rails.
You enjoy pots?
Yep. Yeah, me and Joey Toots, man. I would be throwing stuff over the rails to Joey. Yeah, let me talk about him for a second.
How'd
Uh,
you meet him?
I lost one of my good friends one of my childhood friends this weekend. Um, Joey Tomasello, man. I knew Joey since I was 11 years old. We used to go and sneak into Shea Stadium together all the time. He was him and Freddie and George and Buddy. We all hung out together. Um, he was a flipped out kid, man, and turned into a flipped out adult. And by flipped out, I mean he was a good guy. He was really into the music scene. He, as a matter of fact, he was still into it when he passed away. He would go down and film bands and stuff like that. And if you look at his Facebook page, you can really tell that a lot of the downtown music community had a love for him. And I think I've told you the story before about how we snuck in 1970 to the the big peace concert at Shea Stadium. There was a I'll tell it again quickly. There was a huge concert at Shea Stadium. I mean, everybody was there. Richie Havens, Janis Joplin, Sha Na Na, the Rascals, Pacific Gas and Electric. I mean, you go down Creedence Clearwater Revival. I mean, it was just a who's who of music in the 70s, in
Right.
1970. Matter of fact, I think it was Janis's last or next to last American appearance.
Wow.
So it was like August 1970. And so we go out there. We got no tickets. We got nothing. We're just gonna go. We go out there and we're gonna just. We had a deal where we could climb the. Shea Stadium had bricks on the bottom, and if you were a little kid, you get your hand in between the bricks and climb up the wall and go in,
Boom. Yeah.
and you were in either in left field or right field. There was a few other ways to get in too, but that was the when you were 12, that was the way you got in. So I'm climbing up the wall and I fall and I cut my finger open. So me and Tomasello and Freddie, three of us are together. My fingers bleed. There's blood all over my hand. Tomasello says, "Come on." So we go to the press entrance and we say to the guy at the press entrance, my friend just hurt himself. Look, he's bleeding.
Which way to first aid?
Which way to first aid? We go into the guy takes us to the first aid room. We all go in the first aid room. The woman that's in the first aid, they used to have like a nurse that was in the first aid room.
Right.
So she wraps up my finger, puts some mercurochrome on it or something, and then we walk outside and there's nobody there. So we look to the left, look to the right. What's even better is that there's a table sitting there. And on the table is all these backstage passes.
No. Oh, God.
So we pick up 3 backstage passes and we walk up the ramp and walk into the concert, into the ballpark.
Off we go.
Off we go. And on top of that, because we knew Shea really good, we got downstairs and wound up meeting the Rascals, Creedence Clearwater Revival, a bunch of other groups. We were hanging out like in the locker in the clubhouse.
You had better access passes than they did.
Yeah, we were all over the place. Matter of fact, we even drank. We were drinking from. They had beer set up, so we were drinking beer. We were 13 years old, but we're drinking Rangolds, man.
Oh, God.
But that was Joey Tomasello, man. That we did so many things together when we were kids. We used to go to the village all the time. He was a lot of times we would go down the village, all the stories I've always told about going down the village. A lot of the times, not a lot of the times, but many times we would go together because he was into the village too, like I was. He was into the counterculture and Louis Abalafi and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So he'd go down too, and we'd hang out in Washington Square Park. And it's funny though, we would always wind up splitting up. He would go one way, I would go the other way, and we'd either wind up meeting later and going back to Queens together, or no cell phones or anything in those days. You just had to meet almost purely by, okay, I'm going to head back about 6.
Figure it out.
So if I see you here at 6, we'll go back together. If I don't see you here at 6, I'm getting on the train because I got to be home for dinner by 6:30. And yeah, and in later years, we kept in touch. We he was a guy that was able to stay true to himself. He didn't make a lot of money. He wasn't like a corporate guy or anything like that. But he stayed true to himself.
And he could get you into Shea Stadium for any kind of an event.
Yeah, and I mean, he had when we were about 20, 21, something like that, he opened up a head shop in the village,
Good.
like a used record store and a head shop and a clothing store. And he had that going. He was down a block from CBGB's, and he had that going for a bunch of years. Then he had another clothing store. You know, he would buy used clothing, and then he got into bicycles. You know, the tricycles that they tow you around the city with. He
Right.
had a bunch of those for a while. So he was always thinking how to hustle a buck. He always has his finger on how to hustle a buck in that community,
Right.
you know, in that kind of alternative community. And it was so fitting that I found out about his death while I was sitting in a Mets game.
Wow.
It was almost, you know, fate or karma or whatever it was. And it just this strange how I really missed the guy. You know, even though we
Of
hadn't been
course.
that close, you know, so close in the past years. Um, but it's he was out of all my childhood friends, it's just my friend Linda, my friend Richie, and me left from the hardcore guys, and of the guys that used to hang out, the core guys that when we were really young, for like 11, 12, 13 years old, um, it's just me.
Wow.
I'm the last survivor, I guess you could say, of some pretty intense and I mean, we've lived 3 lifetimes.
Pretty interesting times.
Yeah, yeah. We've seen, as I always say to my friend Lisa, we caught the best of it.
You
You know,
were there when Casey asked the question, "Can anybody here play this game?" And you were there when the answer was yes, we can play.
yeah, yeah. We were there. I mean, we were lucky enough to see Casey Stengel manage the Mets game. We were lucky enough to see the Rolling Stones and Stevie Wonder open it for him. We were lucky enough. I told you the story about how I blew the chance to see the Beatles. Um, we saw tons of groups, though. You know, we were little kids who had the run of the Fillmore East and the Village Theater before that. Um, and Tomasello was a part of that. He
How
was
do you
a
get the name Toots?
I used to call him Joey Toots because of Tomasello.
Gotcha.
And he was an interesting dude. His father was an auto body guy. So we used to and his father was funny because, you know, we'd be hanging out on 82nd Street, and his father would come home, you know, about 6, 7 o'clock at night, and we'd come back out after eating dinner or whatever, and we'd always see his father, and his father would always be yelling at us, "Don't you got homes to go to?" Or he'd come out and get the paper, and we'd see Mr. Tomasello and Mr. Sobolski going up to the candy store to get the paper
Oh God.
at, you know, 8 o'clock. The paper used to come up at, like, 9. So people used to go out and get the paper from 8 to 9 and hang out at the candy store waiting for the paper, and that was social media in those days.
That was how you knew people.
That's how you knew people, that's how you got to know people, that's how you got to know the candy store owner. You go up there and you'd wait for the paper, have an egg cream, and you thought you were living on top of the world, man. You didn't you you thought that that was and in many ways it was as good as it was gonna get.
Yeah. In truth, that is true.
In truth, it really was because you didn't have you had different problems. You didn't have the problems that people have today. You weren't walking around with your head in the phone all the time. You were looking around, you were looking at life, you were sucking it all in with your eyes, not through a phone.
And you could climb a brick wall if you knew what you were doing.
If you had small enough fingers, and it always surprised me because I had like mitts, but it always surprised me that, yeah, I'll miss like I said, I wasn't, that I mean, we weren't as close as we were when we were kids, but we still would talk every once in a while, and I'll miss him. I'll miss his birthday is the day after mine, so
Oh,
wherever I was, I would either call him or text him or find him and send him a happy birthday wish.
of course.
Because we were, and it always pissed me off because you always want your birthday to be like alone. you know,
Yeah.
you don't want to be born the day after your brother or on Christmas or Thanksgiving or 4th of July or something like that, like my daughter was. Um, you just want your birthday to be alone. It's kind of a standalone day. And once I met Joey,
You were
uh,
tied together forever.
we're tied together forever, man. I'm 7, he's 8. All right, I've done enough.
That's a good place to leave it. We'll meet again on Wednesday, Vin, and it won't be a sad day.
Hopefully, it'll be a very happy day, Michael.
Okay.
Hopefully, we'll continue the joy of
Yeah, let's try
Kamala
that.
Harris. Oh, by the way, one more thing while we're talking about people that are gone. Just sad news this morning that Charles C. Cross passed away. I don't know if you know Charles or not.
I don't
Wrote
think so.
a ton of books about Seattle and Nirvana and Kurt Cobain. He was probably his best biographer and was a Facebook friend, used to listen to the shows all the time. And he died suddenly, I think, on August 9th.
Hmm.
And he was a good guy. Like I said, I didn't really know him personally. We knew each other through Facebook more than anything else. But he was um, he was a cool guy. I enjoyed our banter back and forth when we bantered or when we touched base on Facebook. And it was I mean I read Cobain's biography years ago. Probably couldn't remember most of it. And
Charles C. Cross.
yeah, Charles C. Cross. So he went to the great bookstore in the sky this weekend. So our thoughts and prayers are with his son. Just saw a picture of his son at the Violent Femmes. Him and his son at the Violent Femmes who were at the zoo uh, last week or the week
Wow.
before, I forget. So anyway, all right,
Okay. Let's
enough
go
of
someplace where the creek don't rise.
yeah. Let's. I will see you Wednesday if the Lord's will and the creek don't rise, Michael Knight. You take care of yourself. And always remember, have a little peace, love, Manischewitz, baby.
Enjoy it. It's quite a wine, I hear.
See you, Mikey. And thank you all for listening, too,
Thank
everybody
you.
out there.